My talk today is called Dealing with Loss and Grief During COVID-19 Pandemic. You know, when we get lost in a big forest and can't find our way out, every tree looks the same and confuses our pathway even more, and we feel desperate and we go round and round in circles and endless. Now, when we take a helicopter at a later stage and view the forest from above, it's just one square of a total panorama. But we couldn't see this when we were caught right in the forest. Loss, grief, and bereavement are like this. When caught in the pain and suffering at the time, we can't see a way out. We're trapped in the devastation of our seemingly endless, overwhelming, dark turmoil. The most important point here is firstly, to face this pain head on and all its implications, which I'm going to talk about. And secondly, to find a helicopter view in our minds where we can see a panoramic view of our loss and grief and slowly begin to understand its real meaning for an enormous change inside us. A large part of my work over many, many years has been dealing with loss, grief, bereavement. It seemed to arrive at my doorstep right at the beginning of my career of counseling people and teaching many people how to access a larger part of their minds where they can come to look at themselves in a deep mirror. By looking deeply, they can eventually see what needs to transform within themselves and their lives. I always called it my love work because at the time of deep loss and grief, it is only with love, compassion, understanding, and patience that one can nurture human beings through the dark tunnel of pain into the light. Today, in a short talk, I can only try and give you a few pointers for going through the loss and grief that this whole planet is enduring right now through this pandemic. First, a little story. Once, some children were playing in the sand on the beach. They were building sandcastles and other towers in the sand. "This is mine," each one would shout. "Don't touch it." When all the castles were built separately, one child kicked another's castles over and destroyed it. "He spoiled my castle," shouted the child, and laid into the spoiler, beating him and punching him. They all joined into the brawl with shouting, "Don't touch mine." And lots of castles were destroyed in the process. And the parents arrived and announced, "It's home time, children." So they all went home, and the tide came up later and washed all the sandcastles back into the ocean. Well, our lives are rather like the sandcastles, impermanent, vulnerable, changing all the time. Yet we suffer because we hold tightly onto and we attach to a solidity of everything that never existed, to an idea of this is mine and my family's, don't touch it. So many of us have lost the essence of relating with compassion to each other, or sharing, or not being greedy and self-centered. We fight for our castles made of sand instead of caring. Along comes coronavirus, a planetary pandemic, devastating families, businesses, hospitals, individuals, causing tremendous loss and grief to many. Washing away our sandcastles, the virus washed away our sandcastle lives that were often based on I, me, myself, and lots of greed. And in looking at greed and what we really desire, how much is enough? When does it get to be enough? And how much is enough for us and our needs? And countries are fighting and trying to beat it but the virus seems to come in through a side door. And the second waves are starting, predicted to be even more devastating. Lots of grief and loss and suffering. And the strange thing is, with the brilliant minds of all the scientists and doctors, it seems at this point, no permanent solution. And maybe there'll never be a permanent solution. Maybe this is the big lesson of the planet. So this is where we need to put up a huge mirror and look deeply into what is being shown to us in the reflections of our lives right now. It seems that even with some solutions, we are not going back to everything as it was. So it is vital that we start the search within and not without. Even lockdown, the idea of being inside, is actually a brilliant opportunity to change our viewing stance and find the true nature of our minds, which understands that change is completely necessary at this point. So this is our chance when our minds can't be distracted by mega entertainment and outside activities. Our minds are always darting all over the place. So we start to learn to meditate, calm our minds, which is not the only purpose of meditation, just the first purpose of meditation, calm our minds, and then look deeply, deeply, deeply into our minds. And we realize how small, how minuscule the human part of our mind is compared to the full potential of our minds. The human mind is only the human conditioned, analytical, conceptual, ordering part of our mind. But it's like one grain in the total sandpit of our minds. And unfortunately, loss and grief is the one way to take the wind out of our sails, to make us stop and look. First, as so far as the death of a loved one goes, we often find ourselves going through lots and lots of feelings of denial, anger, blaming, guilt, sadness, despair, pining, fear, bargaining. What if only I could have done this? Depression, anxiety, sorrow, disbelief, uncertainty, self-doubt, turmoil, grief, restlessness, questioning, loneliness, distress, unreality, to mention a few of the many. Lots of people that I'm now counseling, just from the loss of their external normal life, go through a lot of these emotions. Never mind if they haven't lost anyone, but even in their losing their normal lives. And what happens is that our dark shadow side comes up when we can't go out and distract ourselves. Many don't want to face these emotions or the dark side. But if we begin to realize that all of this is temporary, impermanent, not solid, and definitely this darkness is not who we really are, but just what we are going through in the movie of our lives. It's just a relative movie. Then we allow this grief, this darkness to come up with full awareness. We just sit quietly and breathe in and out and mindfully come to this very moment of absolute awareness, this present moment. The past is gone, the future hasn't yet been made. And when the feelings start coming up, the dark feelings, we do not judge them, analyze them, order them. We just allow them to come up. And we just observe, bringing our minds back to the breath every time. And in this way, all these ugly feelings and all this dark side simply dissolve back into their essence from whence they came, the essence of what we are made of. And then everything starts changing. In its space, the space that we occupied with all our turmoiled emotions, with everything that was inside, something very special, very fulfilling, and an openness to healing starts changing inside us. And our being gets filled up at that moment with a feeling of how right this is and what an amazing opportunity it gives us to change all those conditioned habit momentums that we've had for so long. Once we use awareness, that knowing that there is a much greater part of our beautiful minds, then we can start realizing that we are the creators of the circumstances of our lives. If not in this lifetime that we created it, then previous ones. And not only what we've created individually, but what we've created collectively. But that's a long story, and I don't have time to go into it, just to mention it. And just that our karma, that which comes upon us, and it's not just cause and effect, it's a multitude of causes that bring about circumstances, and the causes are the ones we've created. And when we know that this is all relative and created by ourselves, by our understanding this, the loss and grief becomes bearable and understandable. Does this mean we were bad in previous lifetimes? No, we don't go down that road at all. Not necessarily. We just look that somehow we took some wrong turnings, and now we need to be cognizant to create new positive avenues while not avoiding at the same time the pain of grief and loss, and fully taking responsibility for our suffering and changing it. This is so important, and I don't have time to go into many case histories, but it's so important that even though sometimes the grief and the pain and the despair and the discomfort and the really rebelling against ourselves and all the darkness can be so great, but at the same time, we realize that it's temporary. We realize that slowly, as we come to a new awareness, everything is going to change inside us. And this is the essence of dealing with it. I always go far away by myself to other countries, sometimes on retreats, similar to lockdown, where I've got no cell phone, no TV, no contact with anyone, where I learned to realize this through looking inwards and being absolutely alone. A great created opportunity. So, this virus has come to remind us, a great reminder, as Bill Gates said, a great corrector, that we've taken too many wrong turnings. We've abused Mother Earth's wonderful hospitality to host us for lifetimes. We've caused havoc to the ecology of this planet, to our beautiful animals, to all the sentient beings that live on this planet. We've created weapons of destruction rather than evoking compassion. We've explored outer space, but not inner space. We've learned to rush, but not wait and have patience. We've created amazing technology, but in it, maybe we've lost or forgotten how to relate to our fellow human beings and all the beings on this planet. We've become attached to power, ego, wealth. We prejudice and have inequality. We're fighting for all our rights. and have forgotten to be beautiful, caring, compassionate beings. We've implemented corruption and greed rather than sharing and service, especially to those in dire need. So coronavirus, whom we can't seem to control and work you out of our planet, even with our brilliant developed human minds, thank you, COVID-19, for bringing me to my knees in loss and grief, for making me turn from ignorance to awakening, for making me face my inner darkness, which I really had to do at some point, and exchange it for something really precious, and for making me realize the importance of service and understanding of my fellow human beings and all sentient life. I have immense gratitude, Mother Earth, for putting up so long with our abuse of this planet and all beings. To go through the pain and suffering of loss and grief is a small price for what can come out of it. To try and at least follow the rules of what we need to do, of what our scientists and doctors are telling us, and at least try to protect others from getting the virus, especially older people and those with comorbidities, is just a small price, like masks and social distancing. It's not a denial of our freedom that some are walking the streets all over the world and protesting, that it's a denial of their freedom. They don't understand what freedom is. Freedom is not outside. It's freedom of the mind to create a different scenario. And it's a chance here, not denial of our freedom, to help others who are going through pain, which on a relative level gives us the most beautiful opportunities in our future lives. It helps us to find inner freedom, which is naturally contained in our beautiful nature of minds. So I want to end with just one short quote that Caroline Brazier in her book said. She said, "The touching of the emotion happens when we really encounter another person. It's both poignant and unknowable in the nuances of feeling, and a tenderness of quite exquisite delicacy can arise, a heightened state. To sit with someone in grief is to experience not only the sadness, the loss, and the grief of impermanence, but it's also to open to something beyond the experience of either of us. There, the universal quality of life hovers. And it is my prayer and aspiration that through this loss and grief, that all will seek that internal, beautiful nature of mind, where peace, spontaneous, compassionate activity, and all comes so naturally to us. It's time to wake up and not go back to what we call normal, but go back to our true selves and really make a beautiful life and use this opportunity. Thank you, everybody.